mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends. Thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode of Hollywood's most greatest monsters. I am your master of ceremonies, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Hello, Dan.
And we are joined this week by the spooky queen herself, Peaches.
Hi.
Oh, yes, very fucked up Chucky. That was a few minutes after. I can swear, can't I?
Yeah. 10 seconds, yeah. Demonetize.
Oh, I don't know how we still are on the air after the Invincible Man episode. Invincible Man? Invisible Man.
Might as well been.
So, this week is, as Peaches and Dan both have in their backgrounds, I know people who are listening on iTunes and Spotify won't see it, but we are doing Chucky and Tiffany. Woo! So, I'll get the disclaimer out the way with, and then intro, and we can just crack on with all these lovely factoids I don't have. So everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Facebook group where we can have an open discussion. What we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun. We keep it kind and keep the toxic behavior out of nerdism. There you go.
Yay!
Yay, thank you. Right. Chucky and Tiffany. Created by, I have to bear with us, Don Mancini.
Yep.
Voiced by the incredible Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly. Together, the murderous pair starred in 4 movies. However, the franchise has 8 movies and an ongoing TV show. My mother always told me love would set me free, but that's not the case for these two. So we bring you Chucky and Tiffany.
Yep.
Ta-da. Took me ages to find a tagline that actually worked. Yeah, took me ages to find a tagline because it was all like, oh God, let's play, and here's another doll. So yeah.
Also,
right.
sorry, my eyes, if I'm not crying at yous because yous are too fabulous, I'm crying because of my hay fever.
And in
emotional.
the UK right now, we are going through a heat wave, and all us UK folk we can't handle it at all.
It's horrible. I hate it. It's like, I feel for the people in the south though, because are they at like 30 degrees now?
We're in Peterborough, so we're straight down from you guys, about 3.5 hours down, and we've had 30 degrees every day since Saturday. And I'm sitting here in my little Dead Cats Club, Michael Myers pajamas, and I'm sweating. I've got the windows open.
Horrible.
It's just...
I am back from a week's holiday where they don't believe in air conditioning at all.
Wow.
Yeah, not one place had air conditioning. So in the UK, it drops down to a reasonable temperature on a nighttime. Not in Spain. Not in Spain. Doesn't do that. Right. Chucky and Tiffany. Created by Don Mancini. However, what blew my mind last night when I was doing a little bit of research, Tom Holland.
Correct.
Did not know that until last night. Had no idea. Tom Holland wrote the screenplay with Don Mancini for the first Child's Play and also directed it.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Caused some massive issues.
Really?
Yeah, because Don had a vision of what he wanted. Obviously, because he wrote the treatment for the first movie when he was 24. So he was like, okay, this is what I want it to go at. And the script is actually going to be called Batteries Not Included. That was the original name for the movie.
Oh.
And this was prior to the Steven Spielberg movie coming out. And when it got picked up, Child's Play, by MGM and United Artists, David Kirshner said, we're not going to take on Spielberg, you'll have to change the name. So he changed it to Blood Buddy. and then it eventually became Child's Play because Blood Buddy wasn't marketable. So Child's Play worked better because it was more friendly.
Yeah.
And it gave them that false sense of like, didn't know what they were walking into. So
yeah, because like the marketing, I don't know if you know that obviously Chucky was named after was it three?
It's
three?
Charles Manson,
That's right.
Harvey Lee Oswald, and Ray. Oh my gosh. Oh, help us out. I thought I was going to be really smart there.
I've got it written down. Hang on.
It's
my brain.
It's Charles
James
Manson.
Earl Ray.
James Earl Ray.
Yeah, because they obviously named him from the three sort of serial killers? Yeah,
serial killers / cult / infamous.
Yeah.
Like it's not all like bracketed into one serial killer group.
Yeah, and then obviously the doll. I don't know if you've read. You remember the Cabbage Patch dolls?
Yeah,
it was kind of based around them because at the time in the 80s they were all the rage because I had them as well. They were ugly fucking things, but like you just loved them. So it was like inspired by that. So the marketing was like, oh, let's like Cabbage Patch dolls, like confuse people. It's like, oh, this friendly doll, and then have like the what was the other doll? The Buddy doll, I think, in America.
Yeah.
I think in like the 80s as well. They kind of had like inspiration from them. And then obviously the marketing, oh, it's like this cute doll thing. And then obviously you think, oh, a doll. I mean, he's kind of sinister in like,
there he is.
Cute, but this is a really old doll. But this was the Bride of Chucky one. But the original ones, you could kind of get away with the fact that he is just like a normal cutesy doll that, depending on how you look at it. Some people don't like dolls, but
it's the dungarees that did it. That's what makes them cutesy. But in the 90s, he was a very, especially in the UK, branded a bit of a evil thing. I don't know how else to describe him. Just with the murder of a young, who was it?
Yeah, James Bulger.
James Bulger, yeah. And the blamed. It wasn't video games this time. It was Child's Play.
Yeah.
It was horror that they blamed, and it kind of like got, it gave it even more like infamousy, like, but it didn't stop me from not wanting to watch it. But I didn't actually watch the Child's Players until a few years ago.
Did you not?
Only because as a child I was scared of dolls, but not in the sense of like I'm not scared of him looking in that way. It was Dolly Dearest who did it for me. And that
remember you're on about that actually.
Yeah, that put the shits up as to the point where like I don't do dolls. So I stayed away from him for a long time. But I remember watching the first 3 straight off the bat and thought it was the greatest thing I'd seen. I thought it was so fun, so energetic, and just it's his voice.
Yeah.
I think for me the decline came by 3. I was like, 1 set a bar because it was Tom Holland's idea of everything. And originally when Don wrote it, he didn't write it with the voodoo scenes in it. There was going to be like a blood exchange between Andy and him, Andy and Chucky, and then it was going to Charles, and then it was going to create this voodoo ritual where he transfers this a non-voodoo ritual where he transfers his soul via blood.
Mm-hmm.
But then Tom Holland said that doesn't make any bloody sense. What are you doing? No, we're going to have a voodoo ritual, and
Don makes more sense.
But Don was dead against it. But now it's become the ongoing trope through all the movies, this bloody ritual and that bloody pendant.
Yeah, I still haven't got it. Have you got that?
I want it.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Well, I know Tiffany's death scene was actually written for the first movie. It was when Tiffany actually dies in the bathtub.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that was written for the first movie with the babysitter, and he got cut out and they recycled it for her death scene. That's my interesting factoid.
Do you know who the babysitter was in the first film?
No.
There's a small film that came out around 1977 called Grease. And there was some pink ladies in it, and one of them was called Marty. And the babysitter in the very first one is played by Diana Manoff, and she was played Marty. in Greece.
That's mad. I didn't know that. I love Greece, I've got to say. I love a bit of cheese.
Greece
No,
food
is she
better.
now?
Yeah, I've watched
Yeah.
it recently.
Maraschino like the cherry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's mad.
Yeah.
Which Chucky movie do you like then? Like, don't just choose one. Maybe choose what you think the best two are.
Okay. I'll tell you what okay, Child's Play, obviously, because it sets
Yes,
everything up. I love it. And probably Bride of Chucky. Like, there's something so campy and kitschy and early 2000 horror that just is so brilliant, so bad it's brilliant.
I'd say Bride as well, because Don decided he saw the success of Scream.
Yeah.
To revitalise the slasher industry. And what he said was he liked about Scream was how camp it was, like how the jokes were in there, and it wasn't just serious horror like the majority of stuff leading up to that point. And he said he loved the fact that people could interact and still act like they were normal, they were having a laugh, and it wasn't all just like, I'll be right back, it wasn't just that. So he wanted to bring that into the script with Bride. And when he took it to the next level, I want to say it is the campest movie, I think, if you actually sit down and think about it. I mean, the fact that they even got Alexis Arquette in that, and obviously anybody who knows Alexis Arquette will know that she, I think, is, I get confused, but she, maybe he, because I'm not sure if he detransitioned just before he died.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
He did.
So
He did. But I don't, the family's kind of like, it was Alexis.
Yeah. But Alexis was in The Wedding Singer and played Boy George in the band. And I still use that as the set bar of how you sing Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? So
Give me
when he's being straddled by Jennifer Tilly on the thing and on the bed, and then she's doing the dance for him and everything, and I just looking back now after seeing that, I just can't. All I see is the Boy George and wanting him to sing Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?
It's the aesthetic of it, though. The whole aesthetic of that, just that scene alone, is goth early 2000. The way the dress
is just I'm obsessed. I mean, she's a literal gay icon as well. I seen like an interview with her recently. I think it was on TikTok. And
it was on TikTok. I saw it.
See it where they said, "How do you feel about being a gay icon?" Basically, and she was like, "Of course, she loves it." And well, for the Bride of Chucky, I don't know. She used a lot of her clothing, like her own clothing. So yeah, she's got a fabulous wardrobe.
She does. Go on then. What's yours favourite too?
Them, like literally the first one and Bride. I love the Bride doll. Obviously, this is like I say, this is the super old fucking. He's like
he's up beyond like anything.
He's seen better days. But yeah, like this is like I think my favourite doll because of the face. I love how he's like slashed to bits and like put back together again, and I love that. I kind of like Seed as well, but I still think the first one and the Bride. So I just choose two.
We obviously had a break last week because I was on holiday, and after we did the last episode, I thought, you know what, I'll get on this early. I've not seen After Bride of Chucky, so I'll get on this early, and I watched Seed. Good God. I fell asleep halfway through it.
I mean, it's quite funny though, the accent, what he does. What's his name? Glenda? Yeah. With the English accent.
It's
Billy Boyd.
It's Billy Boyd. It's Pippin from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And
see, I'm not a Lord of the Rings, I'm not a Lord of the Rings person, so I wouldn't know.
But that's not his voice though.
He's Scottish. He's Scottish.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it took us ages, and I was like, who the fuck's that? So I had to get on week 4, and I was like,
hilarious.
Never.
I just love the fact that his first name, and I think it's in the credits, it's this / Glenda, Shitface. That is his name. And that's what they call him until she decides to call him Glenda, and Chucky decides to call him Glenn. So there's like that whole give or take thing, which was that film came out in 2004. So you're looking at 19 years ago.
19 years.
They were using the they them like
it's
elements it was, but because it was a doll, it just went and people accepted it. There was no like.
It was so progressive for the time. Like, it's 2004. That's not the kind of language that we were using like we do now.
Yeah.
But it is a homage to Glenn and Glenda, which is a Ed Wood film.
Yeah.
Which is of the same kind of like don't know where they fall within their bracket.
Society's
well, I was
Exactly.
going to say, this is a conversation I usually like bring up when you talk about like pronouns and stuff. If you look back at Hellraiser, Pinhead, genderless.
Mhm.
Well, he was leaning more towards femme, wasn't it? And I think Clive Barker as well. I think he was ahead of his time. And a lot of the cast, obviously, they're all queer as well. And I think people forget about all the stuff that was around like a long time ago. I think people just like now to have something to sort of like blame and like do you know what I mean? Like to drag. But definitely Hellraiser. And if you think about it, like the skirts as well, like Pinhead,
The leather.
and that was based obviously around the BDSM scene, the clubs and stuff and different things. But that was another one as well that I think people forget about that one.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Just to go on to Bride, Julia Stiles was cast as the main star, and instead of Katherine Heigl. Is it Katherine Heigl? Is that
It
who
was,
yeah. And she backed out because she landed Role of a Lifetime. And
Yes.
things I heard about you. So she backed out of that one. But this Bride just gives me like that Freddy versus Jason vibe.
Yes.
Like that kind of like look.
Yeah.
Like, this is like where horror was going into. And do you know what? If it continued, I'd have been happy. I really would have. I thought it was such a good film, but I have not, and I'm going to admit this now, I have not seen the other ones. But I've watched a TV show, but I've heard Cult was very good.
Debatable.
I quite liked it, but yeah, like the last one, they changed it up a bit, didn't they?
The reboot.
The reboot one.
And then you had Child's Play 2 and 3, Bride, Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, and Cult of Chucky.
Right, that's right, yeah. So the latest one, I quite like that. The one before that, I was a bit.
I didn't mind the Mark Hamill one.
As a standalone, yes.
As a
but not as
standalone,
part of the canon,
nothing to do with that franchise. As it's on its own, I thought it was half decent. But because you mentioned the fact that the Buddy doll, that makes so much sense now.
Yes, because it ties back into that, didn't it? So they've obviously gone back to the roots kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't mind it as a movie. The TV show though.
See, I've seen season 1. I've only seen the first episode of season 2, and I haven't gone any further. But it's just been one of those things I haven't got around to catching up on. But the whole Jennifer Tilly thing, it sort of loses me somewhere. I think it's after, I want to say it might have happened in Seed, but it might have been Curse. I'm not entirely sure, where they kidnap Jennifer Tilly, impregnate her with Chucky's sperm and a turkey baster. Then she gives birth to twins, Glenn and Glenda. And then I'm trying to remember this. Tiffany's soul then gets put into Jennifer, but you're not 100% sure. So after that, not until the TV show do you find out that she's both and mainly Tiffany. Because she still puts up the facade that she's Jennifer to get by, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And then she ends up playing herself as Jennifer Tilly in a couple of the films as well. And it's like,
it's so meta. It's like mind-blowingly meta.
It really was. When I was going through it, I was like, I can't, where am I? What is this?
I love the look of Jennifer Tilly in Seed, though.
She could wear a bin bag.
Yeah.
She could wear a bin bag and still be a drag queen.
Long brown hair and the tits pushed up to her chin. She looked absolutely fantastic. We only ever get to see Brad Dourif in the first one, don't we? We don't see him any other time.
In the opening scenes or the flashbacks they used, but they used Fiona in the TV show, his daughter, and dragged her and made her up to be him to do the pre-story of him meeting Tiffany. So when you go back and you see in the TV show the flashbacks to Tiffany meeting Chucky in real life, that's Fiona dressed as her dad.
Oh, right. I remember seeing the behind the scenes. Like, So it's Nika. If you've seen the first TV show, Nika is from, I think she started in Cult or Curse. I can't remember which one it was, but she came from that, and then she's followed all the way through now. But yeah, so not only does she play Nika, she also plays her dad.
That is absolutely mental.
Yeah.
But it's one of those really odd things. But in saying that about Brad Dourif, originally they'd cast John Lithgow as Chucky's voice. So Third Rock from the Sun, he played the Trinity Killer in Dexter.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else.
Best series of Dexter by far.
Lord Farquaad in Shrek, for those people who don't watch horror. Why are you here? But yes. We don't mind. Welcome. Yeah. He was originally cast to play Chucky, and he had to drop out at the last minute for something else. Then they cast Jessica Walter, who some people who've watched Arrested Development will know her as Lucille, but I know her as Mallory Archer. She's the voice of Mallory Archer in the Archer TV series. And they filmed the whole thing. They did her voice for the whole movie. So somewhere out there in the deep, dark depths, there's a whole movie of Jessica Walter voicing Chucky. But the studio did a preview, and people were like,
not feeling it. Well, I heard a rumour that Boris Karloff was offered this role and turned it down.
Did Bud Westmore do the makeup?
Yeah, Bud Westmore did all the makeup, and Boris Karloff turned it down. It's a running joke with the Universal Monsters Peaches. He was off everyone he was offered and didn't take them up.
He offered the creature, I think.
Yep, he was. He turned it down. He's offered every single one, and he just went, nope, not doing that one.
Before they actually got Tom Holland to direct the first one, they approached William Friedkin, the guy that did The Exorcist, and he was like, "No, I'm more of a raw documentary style. Like,
oh, you are so
like
pretentious."
that." Yeah, and they were like, "Yeah, that's not what we're doing here. No. We don't even know what we're doing here yet." And so he turned it down, and I can't imagine what kind of film that would have been had he taken it on. I think it would have been
way too serious.
Yeah, and it would have been 72 hours long.
Oh yeah, we would have director's cuts coming out until like the end of time for that one.
Yeah,
but the first movie, when Tom did it, it took. It originally ran for 2 hours, and the studio said that it wasn't working. 2 hours was too long, so they cut 25 minutes out of the movie. And at that point, they said, right, okay, we'll release that on a director's cut at some point. It's never been released, the full 25 minutes. So somewhere out there is an extra 25 minutes of the original Tom Holland's Child's Play, as well as the original version with Jessica Walter doing the voice of Chucky. So
someone's got to, like, is there an anniversary coming out or something? Because that would be gold mine. Like, that people would buy that. I'd buy that.
I mean, I think it's 35 years this year.
Really?
Yeah, because 88, the first film came out in 88, and we're in 2023. So,
oh my God, it still blows my mind. It still blows my mind that it was Tom Holland. I'm not joking. When I read it last night, I was like, no, not Halloween 3, Tom Holland. You can't be serious. And I was like, oh yeah, it's him. So yeah, that kind of shocked us. I'm out of factoids by the way.
Oh, I'll keep going then. There were 3 people who played Chucky as the non-animatronic, as when you see the more fluid movements, we see Chucky running and you're very aware of the difference when you watch the movies about how they have a little person and an animatronic.
Yeah.
And they used a stuntman called John Franklin. He was the one who did the fire scenes where he was set on fire and thrown into the fire. Then you had Alex's little sister, Andy's little sister. She was dressed up as Chucky and used to chase him. And then you obviously have Ed Gale, who's the most famous for playing Chucky. They had to make the set 1/3 bigger. So they had 2 sets where they had the animatronic set, which is the normal set where everything's set to scale. But then they had to increase the size of everything by 1/3 to accommodate the height difference between the little people and the animatronic.
That's crazy. I was reading before we came on because, like, you know what I'm like when it comes to like makeup and wanting to know the details of stuff. And I was just wanting to know, were there any moments of CGI or is it all puppetry? And it's all puppetry, from right down from the eye movements, the hands movements. To say it's very similar to what you see on Seed. Obviously not with the big massive thing and bolted in the back of them, but it's the same idea. Like,
they're on like pulley things. They're on arms and stuff. Yeah,
and it's just it's mind blowing how you can tell when someone it's like the whole alien thing. You can tell when it was CGI or when it was puppetry. You can tell when someone's in the suit and it's amazing how. And I guess they could get away with like the fact of how it is moving because it is a doll.
Yeah.
So you could get things wrong.
Yeah.
I love it. I love stuff like that.
Well, Kevin Yeager, who was the animatronics guy, he also did the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, I love the Crypt.
Yeah.
But if you look at the eyes, they use Chucky's eyes and the Crypt Keeper's eyes are the same. They use them for the same thing.
Oh, when you think about it, because they're very like intense compared to him. He's like fucking decrepit and like dying and that. So yeah, because I do stand out, don't they? Compared to the rest of them.
Yeah, they use the same faceplate with the eyes to build the Crypt Keeper's face for the TV show. But he then went on to marry Kevin Yeager, the animatronics guy, went on to marry Andy's mum in real life, and they've been married ever since. So,
because they met on set, didn't they?
Yeah,
yeah.
He's probably one of the only child actors who doesn't quite annoy me in a horror film. I can tolerate him. Probably not in real life, but yeah. But as a child actor, he does quite well.
He will never not live off Child's Play. That is his
bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not a bad thing, really. Like, if I could ride the coattails of one thing that I did, I would do it in a heartbeat.
But I do love the way that Don Mancini has thought it through. And what he's done is he's grabbed the people from the original movies that worked and brought them back for the TV show. I mean, you look, you've obviously got Andy Barclay, aka Alex Vincent. You've got Kyle, the girl that played, the lady who played Kyle, I've gone blank, but her. You've got Brad still doing the voice, obviously Nika from the previous through, which is Fiona Dorothy, and then and Jennifer, obviously. But then you start looking at the other people that are cropping up, and you've got some serious royalty floating around in there. I mean, in the first movie, Chris Sarandon from The Princess Bride and Fright Night plays the police officer in the very first one.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, in the reboot, you've got Mark Hamill that does the voice of Chucky. You've got the one that always got me was people still don't realise that in the very first season, you've got the uncle/dad of the main kid, which I've gone blank on his name. That's Devon Sawa. That is Casper the Ghost / Final Destination.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And you take one look at him and he's a grown man. And it's like, I'm so used to seeing him as the little cute kid from Casper or the kid that's running around at Final Destination. You know, it's like...
Oh, Idle Hands.
Yeah, Idle Hands as well.
I aged about 10 years when I saw him. I was like... Holy shit, that is like, it took us a while, I'm not going to lie, to like kind of, where's that face from? And then when you see it, you're like, oh my God, I'm old.
Yeah, I mean, it completely threw me the first time I saw him as a grown-up was in this awful film with John Travolta called The Fanatic. I don't know if you've seen it. John Travolta plays a very special needs person. And we're talking full Ben Stiller,
Oh, no.
Tropic Thunder.
No.
Honestly, but it's a serious film. Yeah, so if you are looking for something to just completely sit there and the whole way through and go,
Oh my god.
oh,
No.
wow. Give that a watch, because it's basically about a gentleman that has challenges that becomes obsessed with this actor. And every time the actor comes in town, he always tries to go and meet him and see him. And it's about an obsessed fan, basically. But because he's got special needs, and it's just awful. And you're just sitting there going,
Sounds it.
it's like Family Guy. Do you know what I mean? When they take the caricature of a person and they amplify it. That's exactly what John Travolta did. And to this day, I still sit and think about a couple of scenes in that movie. And you know, when you're just like, I didn't imagine that actually happened.
That was real. I haven't just I have moments like that in movies where I'm like, did I dream that? No, that actually happened.
But the worst thing was the director of that movie was Fred Durst from
Right.
Limp Bizkit.
If I wasn't gonna watch it from how you described it, I'm definitely not gonna fucking watch it now.
Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit directed that movie, and
Oh my god!
Fuck's sake.
yeah, so there's that.
Oh
So,
my god!
yeah.
Do you know what? When it comes to your factoids of directors, you win hands down every time.
I watched about 15 YouTube documentaries. I've spent hours on this, right? And there's hardly any information about Tiffany. Everything is about Chucky.
It's all like, because obviously he was the OG, wasn't he? So
Yeah, it's
but
because I reckon it's because we see her as a person to start with, and we do spend a little bit of time with Tiffany, like as a person. But all I could find was her name's Tiffany Valentine.
Yep.
She dies. She is put into a doll, and then obviously the rest of the movies, but nothing much about her backstory.
yeah,
And I don't know if I've missed anything in the series, because I've watched the first one, but I generally I can't remember much of it. I have a terrible memory to start with, so I probably will end up watching it again. But I don't feel like we know about her. Like, we saw newspaper articles about him straight away. We knew who he was before he'd even entered that toy shop and found that doll, but not her.
Yeah, because you just see, obviously, in Bride of Chucky, she's got like sort of a shitload of dolls. Well, obviously it's going to tie in with Chucky, but she obviously collects like old dolls and stuff. That's about it. And then there's like the newspaper clippings and stuff, which obviously with Chucky when she brings them back. But there's not really. No, she talks about her mother and stuff like that a little bit. Like, and that's about it. And like being in love, wanting sort of kids and marriage and stuff like that, but nothing. Maybe it's just like a hopeless romantic. That's the kind of vibe I get.
Yeah,
but nothing sort of. There's not really a lot about. Yeah,
nothing about like where the murderous tendencies come from.
I think the thing about Tiffany is she hung on for so long, from the minute Chucky died, or from the minute that he left her, because I saw the bit where they was, I can't remember if it's in Bride or not, but there's this bit where she mentions that she has this ring and she's worn it since the day he left, because it was on the mantelpiece, and she thought
the Bride
it was
one. Yeah,
because then she says, "Oh, I'm sure he was going to ask me to marry him, and I've worn it since the day he left, and it's been years and years." And then when she brings him back, and he's like, "Oh no, I stole it off that dead broad that I killed."
Yes.
And it's like, oh my god, this poor woman has dedicated all these years to bringing Chucky back, to then find out that he didn't really give a shit again. It's
very much a Harley Quinn and Joker relationship. Obviously, not to the toxic levels.
I'd say so. I'd say so.
Well, the murder aside.
Because wasn't it based as well? Didn't it base it on you see her in the tub watching Bride of Frankenstein? So it was based around the Bride of Frankenstein. The idea, I think, it's not the whole movie, but I think a lot of it because of like that. And then when she's in the bathtub, she's watching. It's like We Belong Dead.
It's also like bride was obviously made for a friend. Like, it was a companion, and she then becomes his companion in everlasting plastic. Even though I believe they're made out of rubber. I don't know.
Well, as that sex scene tells us.
Yes.
Yeah, which was completely improvised.
So wrong in every level. It's like Team America, that sex scene. It's just everything about it is just like, I don't feel like I should watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I am not prude by any sense of sense of the word, but even I was like, that's fucking cringe. That's like,
yeah,
that's something you do when you're like pissing around with your dolls, like. No, that
Barbie
is cringe.
scissor. Yes.
Barbie scissor.
Oh God, that is just. It was
Barbie scissor.
It makes a lot of sense now.
I'm not going to look at the new Barbie movie the same now. I'm just going to be thinking of the
Margot Robbie and bloody Ryan Gosling are just completely bald down there like Dogma, you know. Full on.
Seen it. Like, I don't know. I've seen quite a lot of trailers for it, but I love her though.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Gosling. I mean, he's all right, but like, I don't know. I think she's great. I loved her in. Not everyone likes this movie, but Suicide Squad. She's just amazing. But everyone hates
Suicide Squad. No, the second one is fantastic because they finally got a writer who can write her. They can finally got someone who could understand and write for Harley Quinn. The rest of the time, it's just they just don't get her at all. That was just fantastic. Do you know what? I think Margot Robbie would do well in as a Tiffany, as like kind of like a. But nobody can beat Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah,
like no one can beat that. No one can beat that voice.
It's like the first movie I ever saw her in was a movie, and I want to say this is the name of the film, but I could be completely wrong. Was it Blue Velvet with Dennis?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Gina Gershwin, I think, was in it with her, and it was Dennis from Speed. I've gone blank on his surname.
Dennis Hopper.
That's it. Yes, and I was shown that at college. That movie. I know. We had a very progressive teacher. She was a hippie, a Buddhist, a huge advocate for gay rights, and so we'd like have to do these shows, and to put things into perspective, she'd pick the wildest movie you've ever seen, and you'd have to sit and watch it, and she'd go, right, this is what I want, and we were like 17 years old watching Blue Velvet for the first time, falling in love with Jennifer Tilly. And then not knowing which way was up for a good couple of weeks afterwards. It was like...
I think the first thing I saw her in was Liar Liar.
I was going to say, like, that was in the back of my head. I remember on that as well, yeah.
But she's like a hardcore poker fan as well. Like, she goes and does the competitions in Vegas and that. Like, apparently she's really fucking good. Yeah. But just a whole aesthetic, like, the way I follow her on Instagram, and I just love her dress style. Because it's very, it's Dina Von Teese for me is like the quintessential vintage look, but it's sometimes unattainable for certain body sizes. But Jennifer Tilly has something very similar, but her body size is like my body size. So it makes us feel like, oh yeah, I could actually pull that look off because Jennifer Tilly looks absolutely fucking phenomenal. Like I just love her. Sorry, I just went on a bit of a deep rant there. I absolutely love her. Her style over the years just progressively gets better, but nothing will beat that dress that she wears at the beginning of Bride because she looks phenomenal.
I've done the cosplay like human Tiffany and doll Tiffany, and if it hadn't been so warm, I was literally going to do that today, like the PVC with the blonde wig.
No,
I know, and I was just like, I'm crazy, but not that fucking crazy. Not on a day like today. Like,
the effort would have been appreciated.
Yeah,
I was literally going to do it because I enjoy like the outfits and everything, and like the heels as well. It's like the classic heel that I can't really walk in, but I can appreciate that aesthetic as well. Yeah.
No, I can't do heels, so I'm good. Have you got any more interesting factoids, lovely lady?
Well, there was a total kill count by Chucky from the first movie all the way through to Cult. So the 7 movies from the original Chucky itself, the total kill count was 75 by singly just Chucky on his own. 75.
The Invisible Man beat him.
Yeah. So basically 25 of those 75 were off screen because they were done by Charles Lee Ray.
Right.
So the other 50, excuse my math, it's hot. The other 50
I didn't come for maths.
The other 50 were on screen. So that's all. And it averaged around 7 murders a movie. My God.
So in one movie, body count 112.
Yeah.
122 body count in Invisible Man.
Yeah.
That's insane. So Invisible Man still wins highest body count as present.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
But I thought it would have been more.
So did I. I checked it about 3 or 4 times because I thought that can't be right, you know. And then I watched a couple of YouTube videos and they were like, yeah, it averages around 7 a movie. But that's not including the Buddy, the reboot, and then now the TV show. So I imagine he's somewhere in the hundreds around about now.
Yeah.
Oh, there's been loads now, weren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally forget that John Ritter is the fabulous John Ritter is in Bride and dies in the most horrific manner possible. Like
he goes full pinhead. He goes full pinhead in that.
Like quite
literally.
I
love that, obviously.
The makeup for it looks fantastic. For the time it comes out, the prosthetics, the makeup all looks pretty damn good, but that is horrifying. Especially for America's sweetheart, John Ritter.
For me, the most horrific thing in the whole film of Bride is where at the end, Tiffany's all crispy, laying there. Chucky's just been shot by Katherine Heigl and he's in the thing. And then the little Glenn buries his way out. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm like, oh. And it wasn't the fact that it was a baby coming out, because God knows we've all seen that happen in one way or another on TV or not. But it was just like, I don't know why it icked me massively, and I'm just like, I don't. I think it was because it was puppetry. So your brain goes, that's real.
Yeah,
that's real.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, the action's been into a crisp as well. I don't know if it's that, but I know what you mean. It's like that kind of grimy, shouldn't be looking at this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it's that.
No, I get it. And also my brain goes to where yours goes to. It's the realness.
Yeah.
Like that's actually that. Someone hasn't done that in the computer. That's taken place and being filmed.
Someone sat there and made a little Glenn, an animatronic Glenn. Then they've thrown a load of goop on it and gone, right, Tiffany, the child Tiffany is now going to give birth to a little thing that looks like a face hugger with teeth. You know, it's like shit face, you know, comes out and it's like,
I really can't get behind the look of shit face, like the doll look, because I get what they're trying to do. It's obviously one fucked up doll, but there's fucked up dolls, and then there's I just can't get away with the look of it because of how iconic them two look, and it doesn't quite fit that iconicness for me.
I think it's because he had to bring himself up, because obviously Tiffany and Chucky had died at that point, and he had no upbringing, so he sort of brought himself up, and that's what they were trying to. I think that's where they were trying to get to with the whole Glenda thing, because he didn't have anyone, so he talked to himself a lot, and so his personality split. I think that's what they were aiming at, but you know, the undertones are that he didn't know whether he was a boy or a girl, because Mum, when he brought back Tiffany and he brought back Chucky, they were both like, I want a son, I want a daughter, so he didn't know which one to, you know, please the most. So
because he was kind of like all over, wasn't he? He was kind of like, which way, like which direction do I go, type of thing.
But he seemed very persuasive to both. So he was quite like easily wanting to please. My heart melted, mind, when he had the "Made in China" written on his arm, and he pulls Chucky's arm out, and it's like same, and I'm like, oh.
I'm in the mood to watch that now. The seed of Chucky. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep during it, and I normally, if I do that and I wake up and I'm like, I'll go back to the point I remember. I didn't do this on this occasion. I couldn't.
Well, the ending of that was that he chops up Chucky with an axe because he just loses his shit, and he
because he goes for unhinged, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh no, this
goes full on.
Sweet little shit face.
Yeah, poor shit face. But I mean, the ways that Chucky has died over all the movies and they've brought him back is crazy. I did a thing because I'm a geek, but like she's a well organized. This is what this is, you see. Nobody has to do anything. I'll just turn up and I'll know. So I'll just sit here.
I thought I was bad for it, like, because I've got my notebook as well, but like I do that as well to sort of remind myself what I'm on about sometimes, because I zone out, especially if I've had too much caffeine. And then I thought I could
keep Peaches on track.
yeah, and then like I'll have like all these random things, but you've got more of a book, I think, there.
Yeah, I literally
I'm normally more prepared.
Yeah.
I'm normally more prepared because normally on a Thursday I am at work and I will get all of my stuff done then. But today I've been in the office and I've literally, as of Wednesday morning, just came back from a holiday. So
to be fair, I didn't even manage to go through all the films. I just went back on to every documentary I could find.
Yeah.
And rewatch them, and it took me like a third of the time to get back from what I remember. So
I think that's the hardest part, is just trying to remember.
Well, I was in the mood to watch Bride last night, so I'm kind of halfway through that because I was like, I need to watch it. Because after talking about like Chucky and Tiffany, I was like, no, I need to watch it. Just not just even for the info, just because it's literally one of my favorites and it's so cheesy and camp. And so I'm halfway through that one. But now I'm in the mood to watch Seed now.
So you're just gonna
I should just binge watch the whole lot of them, shouldn't I? Really?
I mean, that'll take you a good day or so, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it took me a full night to do just from 1 to 3. But when I started, I couldn't stop. I absolutely adored them. Even the third one, I thought, like, yeah, it's not to the same standard.
No,
but
it's
I still
different Andy, isn't it? It's Justin Wayland. He plays, I think it's Wayland. He plays Andy as an older Andy, and I never figured out why until it clicked that film only came out 3 or 4 years after the first one, and Andy couldn't age that much in that time to put him in the army cadets. So they
it's not like Stranger Things where the kids progressively age so fast. This was the 80s.
Yeah. They all look 75, all the kids in the 80s.
I think it's like the hair and the style as well. I don't know, like
just kids grow up too quick these days. That's all I can say. We took our time. We're still going.
I'm still a kid. I'm an old lady, but I'm still a kid. You know, I quite enjoy.
I feel that. Yeah, definitely. I feel that.
Any more factoids?
Well, I can go through with a movie by movie how Chucky came about and how he died.
Let's do it.
Now, this is according to about 2 or 3 different websites. So if I'm wrong, I apologise. I just go with the majority rules on these things. But in Child's Play, the original one from 1988, obviously the voodoo ritual creates Chucky. And Chucky dies in a fire after Andy sets him on fire at the end. Child's Play 2, which came out 2 years later in 1990, someone rebuilds Chucky. So they put the staples in some of the bits and put him together. He explodes after having molten plastic tipped all over him. Kyle sticks an air pump or an airline in his mouth and he explodes.
Nice.
Child's Play 3, he just appears. There's no explanation for why he's there, but he just appears. And he mails himself to Andy at the cadets thing. But he dies through getting shredded in a fan.
Yeah.
At a fun fair type thing. In The Bride, the voodoo ritual again came into place at the beginning because obviously Tiffany brought him back. And then he gets shot by Katherine Heigl at the end of that. In Seed, the dolls are used in the movie, which has Jennifer Tilly and I think it's Redman.
Yep.
The rapper.
Method Man.
One of them. There's lots of mans. There's lots of rapper mans, isn't there? You know?
I think Smith man. I don't know.
But yeah, he gets Glenn brings them back through voodoo, and then Glenn axes Chucky to death. In Curse, there's no real explanation as to why they're back, but they're back. But he doesn't die in that one. He leaves to find Andy at the end, or he gets away. In Cult of Chucky, he finds Nika, and then they work out the voodoo ritual so he can possess her. And then Nika and Jennifer / Tiffany run away together.
Yeah, I like that bit.
Yeah, because they from the TV show they prove that Tiffany is bisexual. Yeah. So they bring that into play in the last one with Nika, because technically it's Chucky, but it's also she's looking at it. It does get rather layered, but yeah. And then in the Mark Hamill one, Buddy's made evil by a disgruntled employee that just presses that evil doll yes button at the beginning, and then it just makes an evil doll, and then he gets beaten to death at the end. I think
he does. Yeah, in this, is it in the supermarket? If I remember that rightly.
Yeah, and then the TV show one, up until where I've seen it, was obviously the main kid finds him at a garage sale, and the most heartbreaking thing for me was the girl character turned around and goes, "Oh my god, you love vintage stuff," and he goes, "No, I like retro," and I'm like, it's Chucky, man. It's neither of them things. What are you talking about, vintage or retro? When he's holding the doll, and I was like, he made
me ill when he had like cassette players, and I was like, oh, God, it's like my childhood. Like, we're not at a stage where my childhood is retro or vintage. We're not.
Oh, I went in the fucking museum, and the fucking PlayStation, the first one, that was in there, and you know the Nokia 310. I was like, "Are you having a laugh?"
We are not that old.
We're in a museum now. We got
great.
fossils in the museum. Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Oh my God. Well, that's quite... Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I'd love to have more about Tiffany. I mean, the only video I watched about Tiffany was some guy had psychoanalyzed Tiffany as a character and made up a backstory for her.
Oh, I like that.
I think it made sense what he did, but I didn't like it.
Right.
He basically said that she was brought up in a home with a mother and father that bickers a lot, because you can see the progression in when Tiffany talks about her mum from the very beginning, when you see Tiffany and Bride till right to the ends of them, she's always quoting her mum. And they start off, the quotes are quite loving, but by the end they get very hateful, like if you love someone you've got to set them free and all that sort of thing. So he analysed that maybe either the mum had killed her dad in front of her, giving her hence the bloodlust, or that the dad had just gone out for cigarettes and never come back, you know. And so there was this whole like scenarios where the lack of a father figure, and then the fact that her mum had turned into a possible alcoholic and neglected the children, and Tiffany then went out looking for a father figure and she found it in Chucky, and hence why she's so attached to him and all this sort of stuff. And as I have a genuine interest in like psychology and stuff, so I found that absolutely brilliant. I think it was done by a YouTuber called CZ World, something along those lines, and it's about an hour long. But it was really, really good. But I thought I can't really mention it because none of it's really factual. It's just stuff he supposed.
I don't think that's a bad thing when it comes down to characters that you don't have a full backstory on. What I get from her is not the murder side, more talking about the upbringing. I get a lot of Marilyn Monroe vibes from her. The infatuation with her mother, the infatuation with love as well, and wanting to be loved, and wanting that romantic life and that family life, and it just reminds us a lot of Marilyn and her upbringing. She was, she was an orphan who actually did have a mother who just didn't have the time for her, so she was always looking for that mother figure. Whereas I think Tiffany has her mother, but I think there's just something so fantasy about her whole life that I don't think you would ever get the actual truth of it. Because there would be so many different stories of how her upbringing came. But I get a lot of not a great deal, like obviously because like Marilyn never went on a murder spree or anything like that or got transformed into a doll. But I think it's probably more the romance side of it. I get a lot of Marilyn from her.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
She's a very girly girl without having to her dress style doesn't match the girliness. Not for the early 2000s, because that's not how we would have been.
I didn't dress like that in the early 2000s. I was in my early 20s, right? Because I'm old. And I was so when that film came out, Bride came out in 1998, so I was 18 when it came out. And I'm just looking back to try and think how I dressed when I was 18, and I wore Grebo jeans. I was like, one of those Hoover jeans.
Yeah,
I remember them.
Yeah,
I had the chains,
and the chain,
and I had tight little hussy t-shirts.
Yeah,
I made all my own jewelry out of kiddies' plastic beads. I made all my own jewelry and hair clips and stuff. I had little bunches because I had really short hair, like down here. And I was like, that's how I dressed when I was 18. And then you see Tiffany, and you're like, she was only supposedly about another 5 to 10 years older than me. That's all she was supposed to be. And I'm like, ooh, if that's what I'm supposed to look like when I get to 28, sign me up. When I got to 28, I did not dress like that. Still didn't dress like that. And I'm like, I wish I could pull that off. There's like elements that you look at Jennifer Tilly's dress sense as a person, and you see Tiffany's dress sense, and they're practically the same thing, like you say, because obviously the clothing was the same, but like it's just how she exudes confidence. It's just this that comes before the aesthetic, I think, for me. Just that radiance of whatever it is.
A woman who knows how to dress for her size and have the confidence to. I envy that in people, because I have like my weight goes up and down, and I have zero confidence regardless of what size I am. So I love the fact that I can see that, and I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I can just get like a little inspired from it. But Peaches doesn't like to mention this, or hasn't mentioned this, but we're the same age. So I think I am like a couple of days older than you. You're a July baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think August I am. So yeah. I know.
So I'm like a month. I am a month older than you.
I was going to say, you two are still in your 30s. You're fine. You've got plenty of time.
only for a very short period of time. But
during the war.
But my point is that we were. So if you were 18,
you're all 3 years younger than me. I'm 43 now. So
we were 15 when this came out.
Yeah.
And I know where I was at, because it's the first time I started listening to heavy music was when I was 15. And I think at 16, I got my first ever pair of baggy jeans, my belt, my rainbow belt that tied.
Oh, I remember them as well.
Yeah.
Like, so many different, what was like the sort of the, probably before the grunge era, wasn't it, as well?
Oh, well, I definitely missed the grunge era. But in me slut top, anyone remember the little
with the
where it had like
on like babe,
and it had like slut written in there.
They come back around, didn't they? Like fashion obviously always kind of like regurgitates, doesn't it? And it comes back around. And I remember seeing that they were going to do the low rise jeans as well. You know, like Britney Spears kind of vibe.
I still have a pair of them from the Attitude clothing era, when all they sold was just really, really baggy trousers. I still have my pair. I won't part with them. I've never been able to fit into them for years. Do we have any more interesting facts?
I think I'm done.
You're done. Well, let's wrap this bad boy up, because I am absolutely sweltering and sitting on a fucking leather chair. Who thought that was a good idea?
I've got all the lights on in here, and it's getting warmer. I've got the ring light on. I've got the big display cabinet lights on. I've got this display on, and I'm sitting here going,
I know, I don't have a fan on either, because the noise of the fan is too distracting, and then I thought it would be on the background of so I just thought it's just easier.
Your makeup is held up perfectly. I know people on Spotify and iTunes can't see, but Peaches just looks fucking spectacular,
Oh,
as
thank you.
always.
So, like, I mean, I think
I
it's
look
just-
like a sweaty mess, let's be honest.
I've got a good setting spray on. If you want any recommendations, I'll let you know, because obviously I use a lot of stage makeup as well, just as my normal day-to-day sort of thing. So yeah, when I do my workshops and stuff, I always have like a list of products, and I use proper industrial stuff. So yeah.
Well, you send that over to me, that'll be grand, thank you.
Yeah.
My hair, you can tell how sweaty I am because this bit of my hair is starting to curl. And
Mine's
it's getting curlier and curlier as the time's gone on. Well, hopefully by the time this goes out on Monday, the weather might have cooled down a bit. But as we are the future,
Yes.
the past of Star Trek and the live show of Labyrinth has already happened.
Yes.
So hopefully we had a good night. No, we did have a good night.
Yesterday was great. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Fun, yeah.
Yep, absolutely fantastic. So yes, all the information for Bleeding Marvelous and Peaches will be down in the description box below. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe this video. I generally can't remember what next week's episode is, but I will get back to you with promotion. I generally can't remember. But yes, we will have promotion out for next week's episode very shortly. You can find Nerdy Up North on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We play video games on Twitch. I think I've just covered it all. I can never remember when it comes to the end.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right.
Yeah, we're all on the socials, but everything will be down below. Again, thank you everyone who's joined us, who's helping building our monster community up. We are very, very grateful. And the BBC interview will be out shortly, so that's going to be.
I want to see this. It better be put on the channel because I want to see it.
It's on the radio, love. We're going old school.
Oh,
It's
I thought it was going to be like a video interview one.
No, God, no. I'd be like, I was fine the fact that we couldn't see each other. That's how I got through it. But yeah, I will make sure that anyone who wants to listen to the interview will be able to. And thank you so much for joining us, Peaches. And as always, thank you for being my co-pilot, Dan. Yeah. Thumbs up. Well, thanks, guys, and stay nerdy, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.